In the beginning, there was only light, an ocean of heat, boundless and eternal. This was heaven, a realm sculpted from pure harmony, where golden clouds drifted lazily through skies of liquid amber. A single, unending song flowed through its very essence, a symphony sung by a chorus of seraphim, their voices weaving melodies of peace and adoration. Every corner of this celestial paradise pulsed with an overwhelming beauty, a testament to the perfect order of its creator. Among the legions of angels who dwelt in this perfect light, one stood apart. His name was Lucifer, the light-bearer. Of all the heavenly host, he was the most magnificent. His wings were spun from the dawn, his eyes held the fire of 1,000 suns, and his voice, when he joined the great song, was a note of such purity it could make the stars themselves weep. He was wise beyond measure, strong beyond compare, and his brilliance was a reflection of the divine glory he served. All of heaven admired him, looked to him as a beacon, a perfect creation in a perfect world. He walked through fields of stardust, his presence a living testament to the power and grace of God. For eons, he was the brightest flame in an already luminous existence. His loyalty is unwavering as the celestial firmament, but even in perfection, a seed of something else can find purchase. It began not as a roar, but as a whisper, a subtle question in the quietest chambers of his heart. Lucifer, the star of the morning, would gaze upon the infinite expanse of heaven, upon the legions of angels who revered him, and then he would look to the throne at the center of it all, the source of all power, all creation, all authority. And he would think, why? Why should one being hold such absolute dominion? He was the light-bearer. Did the light not originate from within him? He was the most beautiful, the wisest, the strongest. Was his own brilliance not a power in itself? The thought was a dissonant note in the perfect symphony of his mind. At first, he dismissed it as a fleeting shadow, an imperfection to be purged. But the seed had been planted in the fertile soil of his pride. It began to grow, its roots coiling around his devotion, slowly, imperceptibly choking it. He started to see the adoration of other angels, not as a reflection of the Creator, but as his own due. He saw their obedience to the throne not as harmony, but as servitude. The great song of heaven began to sound less like a chorus of love and more like a chant of submission. His own perfection, once a source of gratitude, became a justification for ambition. He looked at his own radiant form, the power that crackled at his fingertips, and a new, dangerous desire took shape within him. To be not just a bearer of light, but its source. To be not just a subject, but a sovereign. The whispers in his heart grew louder, no longer questioning, but demanding. Why bow when you were made to rule? The shift was subtle at first, a change in the way the light bent around him, a new intensity in his gaze. Lucifer began to seek out others, not for fellowship, but for influence. He would speak to them in shadowed alcoves of celestial gold, his voice a mesmerizing blend of logic and passion. He spoke of freedom, of potential, of a grander destiny than mere service. He painted a picture of a heaven where power was not bestowed, but earned, where the greatest among them could ascend to even greater heights. Many were captivated. They saw his brilliance, his unassailable wisdom, and they were swayed. To them, his words were not treason, but a new and exciting truth. They began to gather around him, their admiration twisting into a fervent allegiance. They became his circle, his confidants, their whispers echoing his own ambitions through the pristine halls of heaven. But others felt a chill in his presence. The loyal seraphim and archangels saw the pride in his eyes and heard the discord in his philosophy. They saw the way his followers looked at him, not with the love of brotherhood, but with the blind devotion of subjects. They would turn away when he passed, the harmonious hum of their existence disturbed by the shadow he now cast. The air in heaven grew heavy. The once uniform song of praise now had undercurrents of dissent, of hushed arguments and fearful glances. The golden light seemed to dim in certain corners, as if wary of the darkness that was beginning to pool there. The perfect harmony was broken, replaced by a growing, terrible tension that vibrated through the very foundations of the celestial realm. And then, the moment came. The Creator, who sees all, who knows the turning of every heart, finally let his awareness be known. The sky of liquid amber did not just darken, it boiled. The golden clouds curdled into a bruised purple and violent gray. The endless song of heaven ceased, cut off by a deafening silence that was more terrifying than any sound. Then came the thunder, not the distant rumble of a mortal storm, but a celestial crack that split the sky. A sound that felt like the tearing of reality itself. The light of heaven, once warm and welcoming, became a blinding, accusatory glare. It converged on a single point, a dais of crystal before the unseen throne, and there stood Lucifer. He was no longer hiding in the shadows. His magnificence was on full display, but it was a terrible beauty now, sharp and defiant. His dawn-spun wings were spread wide, casting a long, arrogant shadow. He did not need to speak his challenge aloud. It burned in his eyes, a declaration of war against his own maker. He raised a hand, and arcs of pure, white energy, his own inherent light, danced around his fingers. This was it, the ultimate act of rebellion, the beloved Son standing in open defiance of the Father. The silence stretched for an eternal second, the whole of creation holding its breath, and from the epicenter of all light, a voice that was both music and thunder spoke a single word, a name that echoed with sorrow, with judgment, with finality: Lucifer. The response was war. A schism ripped through the angelic legions. On one side stood Michael, the great archangel, his sword drawn, a blade of righteous fire. Behind him gathered the loyalists, their wings of white and gold beating in unison, their faces set with grim resolve. On the other side stood Lucifer, his beauty now a mask of cold fury. Behind him, a third of heaven's hosts, their forms shimmering with borrowed power and rebellious pride. The clash was not of steel, but of essence, of light against light. The sky became a canvas of impossible violence. Comets of holy energy screamed across the heavens, exploding in silent, blinding bursts. Angels collided in streaks of gold and silver, their battles shaking the firmament. It was an epic, horrifying ballet of power. There were no cries of pain, only the shriek of light being torn asunder and the deep, resonant boom of celestial forces colliding. Michael and Lucifer met at the epicenter of the storm, the archangel's sword of divine flame against the light-bearer's own corrupted, brilliant energy. Their duel was the heart of the conflict, a silent, desperate struggle between loyalty and ambition that sent shockwaves rippling through all of existence. The battle raged, a timeless, chaotic storm within the walls of paradise. But there can be no victory against the infinite. As the celestial war reached its crescendo, the voice of the Creator sounded once more. It was not a shout of anger, but a declaration of judgment, calm and absolute. The fighting ceased instantly. Every angel, loyal and rebel alike, was frozen in place. The light of the throne intensified, a pure, white fire that was impossible to look upon. It did not burn, but it sold into the core of every soul, and it found the stain of pride, the darkness of rebellion. Then came the verdict. Cast out, a force, irresistible and final, seized Lucifer and his followers. They were lifted from the plains of heaven, their wings powerless against it. For one horrifying moment, they hung suspended in the blinding light, and then they were hurled downward. The fall was an abyss of sensation. It was a plunge through layers of reality, a stripping away of grace. The golden light of heaven became a receding star above them, a paradise lost in the blink of an eye. The harmonious song was replaced by the sound of their own screams, echoing in the vast, empty nothingness. There was no bottom, only a descent into ever deeper darkness. The light of their own being was extinguished, their angelic forms twisted and torn by the sheer velocity of their banishment. The fall felt endless, a silent, terrifying plummet through an eternity of cold. They were falling away from everything they had ever known, everything they were. They were falling from grace, from light, from God. They landed not on solid ground, but in an absence, a cold, formless void where light had never touched. This was not a place. It was a consequence, a realm born from their rejection. As Lucifer stirred, he found himself in an oppressive, silent darkness. The air, if it could be called that, was thin and frigid, filled with strange, sibilant whispers that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Distant, sorrowful echoes. Perhaps the last vestiges of their own falling screams haunted the oppressive silence, creating a palpable sense of utter desolation and loneliness. This was the primordial foundation of hell. An empty, shadowy wasteland, waiting for a master. Lucifer rose to his feet. The last glimmer of heavenly light faded from his eyes, replaced by a smoldering ember of pure hatred. He looked at his hands, his form. The radiant beauty was gone, burned away by his fall. In its place was something new, something darker, yet, in its own terrible way, more powerful. The grace was gone, but the ambition remained. Now forged in the fires of eternal loss and unending defiance, he stood in the crushing darkness, the echoes of his failure swirling around him. Heaven was lost, the light was gone, forever. He was alone, ruler of nothing but shadow and silence. A bitter, cold laugh escaped his lips, a sound of broken glass and grinding stone. It was the first sound to ever truly belong to this new, dark realm. He was no longer the light bearer. He was the king of the damned, the lord of this empty abyss. The fall was over. And in the heart of the endless night, his reign had just begun.